Alright, so good morning and welcome to Luxembourg on this very, very hot day. It's actually going up to 34 degrees today. And yeah, this is a bit of a different kind of scenery today because we're not actually running on the trails, which means we're taking a look at a road running shoe. And that is not just any kind of road running shoe, but the very, very popular New Balance Rebel V4. So yeah, not going up there today, but let's walk over to the next bench here and take a closer look at this shoe. Now let's just quickly talk about this upper here, because it really is very, very thin and unstructured for what is basically a daily trainer. It's a very thin tongue, there's no overlays, it's just a tiny bit of padding in the heel, so it's really very, very minimal. And I really like that, just because it saves on the weight and doesn't make this too sort of warm. The midsole, this is Fuel Cell, but this is not quite as soft as Fuel Cell in the past. It just has this sort of nice kind of firmness and response to it, but it's still quite soft and cushioned. It's just this really nice balance here where you're not sinking into the shoe, but you have this very nice cushion. And boy, it is so hot and humid right now. But let's quickly move on to the outsole before we go back into the shade. And it's quite surprisingly deep rubber actually for a shoe that is this light. Just sort of strategically placed here in the forefoot. Nothing here where you don't really need it. Just two sort of little strips back here. So yeah, grip is fine on pretty much any surface I've run on. And let's move into the shade here and continue on this run. And it's just so sort of comfortable. This is actually one of the most comfortable shoes I've ever owned, and there's just no hot spots at all. Lockdown is perfect, and yeah, it's just an absolute joy to lace this one up. What is this shoe actually? Well, that's sort of the topic of debate here, because I've done 200k in this and I've used this for pretty much everything really. I've done easy runs in this, moderate runs in this, and I've even done a few sessions in this. It can pretty much flex into any kind of use scenario. The biggest sort of plus with this one is really the weight. I mean, it's 181 grams in my size 40, which is pretty incredible to be honest, if you consider that the Vaporfly models are all around 175, and having this kind of daily trainer basically being the exact same weight is a real big plus for this one, and makes this one of the lightest non-plated shoes I've ever owned. So this shoe has one sort of disadvantage, and let's get that out of the way now. Now this is my normal size 40, and this shoe is number one a bit wide, and that sort of does work for my foot, so that's fine, but it also comes up kind of short. You can see that I'm basically right at the edge here. That's sort of been a problem, and I've had a few sort of bruised toenails going downhill. This is sort of the dilemma here, because you could go half size up of course, but then the shoe would probably be too wide. So sizing is a bit tricky with this one. I think if you can get it right, then the shoe is pretty much unbeatable, but do pay attention to that. If you have a kind of narrow foot, then this is probably going to be too wide for you. Now it does have a very wide base here, but I have to say it doesn't really bother me, as it's just so light and responsive that it still feels nimble and not like the kind of boat kind of feeling that you often have in these super wide shoes. So now I've been sort of moaning a bit about the heat here, but I strangely love it, because I have people walking by and you have this sort of really beautiful smell of sunscreen. Luxembourg insiders will know this track here, as it's a bit of a special one. It's somewhere between 330 to 370 meters long, so it's a bit useless if you're trying to do accurately measured intervals. Quick look at durability here, and I only just noticed that I have a very slight sort of fray back here in the heel collar, but there's nothing I'm really too worried about here. And the outsole is looking pretty much fine. There's just sort of a slight wear up here in the toe off and a bit right here where I strike. You do have to consider that I did take this shoe on a few trails as well, and this is obviously not a trail shoe at all. It's too soft for that. The grip is not quite there. It's not enough support and structure to the upper. It's not a trail shoe. This shoe for me really is a direct competitor to the Hoka Max 6, and I have that shoe as well. I find this one just a bit sort of firmer and has a bit more response and less squish to it. But they are very similar, and I do think that I might want to do a comparison video, because I've also put over 300 kilometers in the Mach 6. The short form is both shoes are really excellent daily trainers, and you can't really go wrong with either of them. So overall, yeah, the only sort of shortcoming of this shoe in literal terms is the fit, which is a bit sort of tricky to dial in. Otherwise, I think this shoe does pretty much everything, and I really do highly recommend this as a daily trainer. I think this is going to work for the vast majority of runners. So I hope you enjoyed this little tour of Luxembourg here, and I always love running here. It's just such a chilled and relaxed sort of vibe, and yeah, so I'll just finish this off by saying thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you on the next video then.